I absolutely love this saying. Death is the landlord and life is the tenant. If you really think about it, death is the reason why we can live. Death is what gives us the means to feel like our life is a finite experience that allows us to be in this existence more fully and truly and experience every moment a little bit better than we could otherwise, because if death was too lenient, we wouldn't be worried about time running out. We wouldn't have that urgency to do something interesting or exciting with our lives. And I guess this can be a little bit contradicting when it comes to spirituality and mindfulness, because oftentimes we talk about not doing and just being. And I do agree, because we are human beings and not human doings, right? It's important to just be. But you gotta do as well. You can do by being. You can be so intense in the doing that the doing becomes the being. That statement shows how powerless we are to what has been predetermined for us by the material existence. We're completely powerless. And the question is our time in existence really over when we can no longer pay the proverbial rent? Let's dive into this a bit deeper. Hello and welcome to Productively Mindful. My name is ailandas.sulcas and I talk about everything mindfulness and spirituality several times a week. If that's something you're interested in, make sure you click subscribe and click that notification bell underneath the video and join this wonderful community. So what happens when your time is up? What happens when death says that they're selling their property and you have to vacate it? What happens? Is it all over? Perhaps, perhaps not. Let's explore and find out. I guess asking the question of what happens after we pass away is one of the biggest mysteries we have. We have no idea what happens. It's very much out there when it comes to philosophical questions and trying to figure out what happens after that. If do we still exist? Do we not exist? Do we just disappear in the ether? Is it all over for us? That's it? Bye-bye, goodbye forever? Well, I feel like it kind of points, my perspective towards it kind of points towards that it's not over. And that death brings us a great opportunity to start a new chapter in life. And let me explain a little bit what I mean. There are plenty of people out there that have experienced a near-death experience where they were perhaps clinically dead or very close to being dead, or basically on the precipice of leaving this objective reality, right? This experience that we call life. And people that do have this experience, they talk about the sensation of oneness, the sensation of all-encompassing peace when they go through that experience. There's probably a reason why it's a recurring theme that people talk about, and if you want to find out more about it, I'm sure there's plenty of videos, and I've actually seen quite a few videos on YouTube where people share their experiences, and all of them talk about peace and oneness. All of them talk about it. And there's a reason why they feel it, I believe, both physiological and a spiritual one. So physiologically, in the object-based reality that we all experience, we all know what happens. Your pineal gland, or the so-called third eye that we have in our brain, which is deep inside our brain, it has the ability to release a substance called anandimethyltryptamine, which is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, psychoactive molecule in existence. It's more commonly known as DMT. So our brain releases that molecule when we are going through the near-death experience or the actual experience of death. That essentially puts us in a psychedelic trip. What that does is it completely and utterly destroys your sense of self. What you have been building throughout these years gets completely and utterly annihilated. And then obviously your physical body, it will eventually deteriorate and go back to where it came from, to Mother Nature. All of your physical structure will eventually decompose into the building blocks of the universe, atoms and molecules, and it will go back to Mother Nature, bind with other elements out there, create new structures. Physically, you will technically never be gone. Like I said, that release of that chemical in your brain produces a sensation of losing yourself. It is more commonly known as ego death. So the you that you build over the years of your existence, the you that you believe to be you, is what we commonly call as the ego. Your ego has built up this filtering system around your thinking mind that whenever you experience something, and if you try and really focus on this, you are always constantly aware of everything. But what your ego does is it takes that awareness, filters it down through the filters of comfort based on what you have experienced so far, and it gives information to your thinking mind slightly skewed, not the true and pure awareness that you experience as you're looking around using your five senses and experience the reality that is unfolding in front of you. It skews it slightly so it's comfortable based on what you believe to be comfortable. So it always skews the true information that's been given to us, to our five senses. And we never truly experience reality for what it is, right? Unless we're really, really conscious of that and we work our nice tushies to get better at becoming aware of what we need to be aware of. So that is the sense of self. That is what we lose when you could say, start tripping just before we pass away. We completely lose everything that we built as our image throughout the years of our physical existence. So why do we get this feeling of oneness? Why do we get this feeling of peace? Kind of begs the question, right? Because if we feel the sense of oneness, the sense of peace, when the ego gets stripped, and why do we build that ego? Well, we build that ego because the ego is the reason why we are capable of functioning properly in the societal structure that we live in. It is a necessary tool for us to survive in this object-based reality. But what we get presented with is the sense of separation from that ego. The sense of separation is what allows us to see reality through a different lens, so to say. Experience reality for what it truly is and the way it unfolds in front of us. Unfortunately, at that point, it might be that you will not get to experience that reality again, but the doors become open for you to step through the doorway of experiencing the fundamental nature of our existence. That is where you stay when you pass away. That is what you experience when you pass away. That is what I believe. Experience of life itself is just a very complex expression of consciousness. Consciousness does not reside in other objects that don't have a sense of awareness, right? Like a lamp or a bedside table, some sort of a bag or something. They don't have consciousness within them. Consciousness doesn't reside within them, but yet it's an expression of consciousness because consciousness is fundamentally the building blocks of everything that we know to exist. The only reason why we can perceive these objects is because we have the five senses that give structure and substance to those objects. Otherwise, they're just an expression of consciousness. A house is no different from a piece of rock. They're all made out of the same thing, which is matter. The only difference between a rock and a house is that a house is quite a bit more complex than a rock is. It's the complexity that changes. And the reason why we can't experience consciousness is because sometimes a certain combination of materials, for example, baking a cake, you don't tend to add anything gooey into the cake, but then sometimes when you make a cake and you make it right with all these ingredients, the cake becomes very gooey and sticky and moist and a very nice texture that you never added into the cake, but it has it from you combining certain materials. That's the same thing with us. We are a combination of certain matter, certain material objects that allowed consciousness to experience itself through our perception of what reality is. That's how consciousness grows itself. So if our sense of self gets completely and utterly obliterated when we're crossing through the doors of heaven, if you want to call it that way, what's the point? What's the point in building that subjective reality? It's a very fundamentally different understanding of reality altogether. The reason why we build it is because that's literally how society forces us to grow as a human species, not spiritually, not in a sense of understanding the very baseline of what reality is, but trying to construct reality that fits our societal beliefs. Predominantly, that includes chasing some sort of external gratification, some sort of way of permanence in a state of happiness. Happiness, unfortunately, is a fleeting sensation. Contentment is not, but happiness is. It's as if we're trying to build something materialistically that will allow us to stop this end that's going to happen. It's as if this material existence will eventually bring us the happiness, the joy and fulfillment that we want, that will allow us to rest in peace and go to our deathbed peacefully and calmly. So we might lose our sense of self physically, but not fundamentally. What happens through the experience of death? With the help of your third eye, you get stripped of the subconscious, everything that you've built subconsciously, to give space to let in the ethereal truth. The beautiful thing is that this ethereal truth can only enter your very essence, your soul, a limited amount of times throughout your physical existence. You either have to get to your absolute rock bottom to completely shatter your perspective of reality to the one that actually is true. You put in the hard work through the practice of spirituality and mindfulness, through means like meditation, breath work, emotional intelligence, observation, acceptance, non-judgmentalism, or you pass away. Essentially, what we all want to do is create separation between what we believe we are and what we fundamentally are, between the observer and the thinker. Only then we will realize our true nature and who we are, where we came from, our capabilities. So what you want to do to be able to utilize this opportunity that presents to you only a very limited amount of times in your life is practicing acceptance through understanding. You need to understand that denial is what causes all of your suffering. It's all a choice. But once those doors close for the final time, the opportunity to see where you came from, who you truly are, will be lost forever. We oftentimes strive for new knowledge, new understanding of what the world is. We always have questions. We always have things that we want to uncover, understand more deeply. But they are always subjective. They're always individualized, personal to the understanding of life that we already have. Unfortunately, that understanding comes through denial of what we haven't been told to be true throughout our lives so far. So what death brings us is potentially the greatest piece of understanding that we could ever have. It gives us the opportunity to step through a doorway that pretty much all of us don't realize exists, and we never utilize the opportunity to step through it properly. But if you practice acceptance, non-judgmentalism, if you practice emotional intelligence, if you practice meditation, just being true to yourself, being completely you and authentic, through those means you can step through that door when it presents to you, be it your absolute lowest, your absolute best, or the end of your objective reality. Regardless, You will be able to step through it. Whatever you thought to be you will get completely dissolved. It will not matter anymore. You will have the sense of oneness and peace, because you will go back to your true essence, your true reality of who you are. You will join back the all-encompassing field of consciousness. And I believe, personally, that you will have the opportunity to be reincarnated as somebody else, something else. I hope you guys found this video useful. It's a bit of a philosophical one, I guess. Perhaps a bit of a sensitive subject to some. But I do really hope that you found use out of it, and perhaps some sort of golden pieces of nugget that you can utilize to understand this very complicated experience that we call life. If you did enjoy what I talked about, please click like, share, comment, subscribe. Let's have a discussion underneath the video about what I talked about. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Like always, let's have a conversation. I'm always eager to learn. I'm a mindfulness and spirituality guide, and I help people overcome difficult situations in their life through these specific practices of spirituality and mindfulness. I help people with stress, anxiety, depression, just not knowing what to do. Perhaps you're stuck in your actual journey, or perhaps you want to get onto the journey because you know how many benefits it can bring. There's a completely free booking link underneath this video in the link tree. You can click on it and book a 1-hour conversation with me where I will help you overcome whatever barriers you have, no strings attached. This has been ailandas.sulcas from Productively Mindful. I love you all, and I will speak to you very, very soon. Goodbye.